and find the definitions for parallel and skew. Someone give me the definition of parallel lines. How about Brennan? What's the definition of parallel lines?
Lines that do not intersect and are coplanar.
Okay. So 2 parts to that: do not intersect and are coplanar. So usually when you see parallel lines, they'll look like this, and oftentimes you'll see them marked with those 2 little like arrows to mark them as parallel. And what else? Do not intersect and are they coplanar? They are not. So they are not coplanar. So this is going to be kind of confusing when I draw it, but skew, because this is not 3D, something like this. Let me show you what I mean with some straws. Great. 2 lines that intersect at a right angle. So usually you will see it marked with a right angle. Is a line that intersects two or more coplanar lines. So it would be something like this. We have, here are 2 coplanar lines, and then the transversal would be what I'm drawing in black. Oftentimes you see it labeled T, so it's cutting across transversal. So you will see me from here on out, and you've hopefully been starting to see it. 2 lines like that means, do you remember? Parallel. 2 lines intersecting like that means perpendicular. So you're going to see me use those symbols consistently. I'll mark it in red. JL is this one. JL is something to NM. How is JL related to NM? What do you guys think? They are parallel because, why are they parallel? Can someone look back at your definition, explain to me why are they parallel? Right, don't intersect, and they're on that same plane, which is that flat surface of the shape here, that top right side. Okay, NO, be this guy, and KL. NO and KL are what, guys? Skew, because why? Could someone please explain? Intersect, not coplanar, not on the same surface of that shape, so they're skew. DH and GH. What do you guys think? They look perpendicular. Is it marked? No. So I would say it's neither or none. You can't say anything because it's not marked. If it was marked with a right angle, then you could say it's perpendicular, but it's not. Remember, perpendicular has to be marked. So let's look at BF and CG. What do you think for those? Someone raise your hand and explain to me why you guys are saying it's parallel. Why is it parallel? Right, they're on that same plane, that like back of the shape right there. So they don't touch on the same plane. Corresponding. Corresponding angles are in corresponding positions. What that means is that they are in the same spot. So you'll see that you have like two groups of 4 here. You got this group of 4, and you got this group of 4 angles. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. They are corresponding if they're in the same spot in that group of 4. So like this angle, well, let's mark it with real. This angle right here, I'm just drawing a dot, is in the top right. It is corresponding to the other angle in the other pair of group of 4 that is in the top right. So this one right here is also top right of that group of 4. You have a bunch of other corresponding angles. You have the ones on the top left are corresponding together. You have this pair on the bottom right and this pair on the bottom left. So you have 4 pairs of corresponding angles. Please make sure you mark 1 pair of corresponding angles. If you're going to mark multiple, then make sure you mark them differently. That way you know what you're looking at, but you need to see. You should have 1 pair of corresponding angles marked. Alternate interior. The interior of the 2 lines is this part right here. That's the interior because it's inside of the 2 coplanar lines. So that's the interior. If you want to mark it, you can. A lot of times you'll see me do that just because I find it helpful for students and for me when finding angle pairs. So alternate is just another way to say opposite. So they are on the opposite side of the opposite side of the transversal. And they're between the 2 lines because they're on the interior. So here is one example. So I'm drawing in the 2 dots. You should draw in 2 dots as well. They are on opposite sides of the transversal, and they are on the interior between the 2 lines. If 2 things are consecutive, it means they are in order. They're like side by side each other, and so consecutive angles are side by side, so same side, and they're interior. So consecutive interior. Here's the interior. My iPad's reading really slow. There we go. This is the interior. So if they're consecutive, it means they're on the same side. They're side by side. So here is an example of consecutive interior. Those 2 angles right there. Exterior, use a different color, is outside of the 2 lines. So on the outside, that would be this part. So alternate exterior angles should be in that outside part. And they're alternate, so still on the opposite side of the transversal. So here is an example of alternate exterior angles. Those 2. So here's an example of vertical. You have 3 more pairs of vertical angles in this diagram because there's 2 groups of 4. But that's one that you could have. And a linear pair, as you know, is when they're adjacent, so side by side, and they make a straight line, so they're on a line together. So linear pair could be something like these 2 that are side by side on a line. But there are actually 8 total linear pairs. You got these 2, these 2, these 2, these 2. It keeps going. So you actually have 8. What I find helpful to do is label the interior. So this is the interior between the 2 lines. So our angles then are what? On the interior or the exterior? They're exterior angles. And so what kind of exterior angles are they? Alternate, because they are on the opposite side of the transversal, which you see here. Here's my transversal. They're on the opposite side of that. So these are alternate exterior. If you find it helpful, mark the interior. That space between the two lines is the interior. These are on the interior. What are they called, Tori? What's the name of these angle pairs? So they're on the interior. They're consecutive because they're side by side. Consecutive interior. Because they're side by side inside. So they're not on the inside or outside together. But what you can look at is, look at your group of 4 angles. Megan, what kind of angle pair is that? How do we know it's corresponding?
Because
Notice they're both in the interior together. Cooper, what is the name of this angle pair for 7 and 8? Right. Because they're on the opposite side of the transversal, but they're on the interior of the two lines. 1 and 7 are what? Alternate exterior. AEA. Number 2, 4 and 6 are what, guys? Alternate interior. AIA. 8 and 7. Linear pair. 3 and 8. None of the above. 3 and 5. Alternate interior. 2 and 4. Vertical. Okay. Can you give me a pair of corresponding?
1 and 3.
Sure. You could have also said 8 and 6, 2 and 4, or 7 and 5. Jacob, could you give me a pair of alternate interior angles?
Angle 7, angle 3.
Angle what?
7 and angle 3.
Angle 7, angle 3, yep. You could also say 2 and 6. Consecutive interior. Sophia, can you give me a pair of consecutive interior?
3 and 2.
Mm-hmm. You could also say 7 and 6. Cruz, can you give me a pair of alternate exterior? Mm-hmm. Angle 1 and angle 5. You could also say 4 and 8. Vertical angles. Alex, can you give me one?
Angle 3, angle 5.
Mm-hmm. You could also say 4 and 6, 1 and 7, or 2 and 8. And then linear pair, there are 8 of those. Bonnie, what do you got? 1 and 8, yep. You could also say 8 and 7, 7 and 2, 2 and 1, 3 and 4, 4 and 5, 5 and 6, or 6 and 3.